So the Anbernic RG351P is an oldie but a goodie when it comes to the world of retro handhelds. It was first released back in 2020, and since then we've had a ton of new retro handhelds come out from multiple different companies. Each year, these retro handhelds keep on getting more and more powerful. So why do I keep going back to the RG351P? Well, honestly, because the fact that it's a very reliable little handheld with a lot of charm, and it looks great, and honestly, it plays 95% of the retro games that I want to play. Even though I recently purchased the Retro Pocket 3 Plus, which is much better performance-wise than the 351P, I still find myself going back to the 351P. One thing I haven't tested is DS gameplay on the 351P, which is odd because honestly the DS is probably one of my favorite retro handhelds of all time. I used to spend so much time playing on my blue Nintendo DS, the original one, which is very evident by the wear and tear on it. So today, we're going to test out DS gameplay in this device. Is it good? Does it run smoothly? And is not having the touchscreen going to be an issue? I put together some of my favorite DS games of all time, plus some of the favorite games of the general public's opinion of all time, and I put them to the test. Now, without further ado, let's get into the video. Before we get into the games, let's talk about my setup on the Anbernic 351P. I installed the custom firmware Anbernic on my 351P. With that firmware comes pre-installed the Drastic emulator for DS. Now, I should note that this Drastic emulator, I did not change any of the settings on it. I played it as it comes pre-configured with the installation of Anbernic. Now, let's get into the game. Let me start off by saying this. DS gameplay on the Anbernic RG351P is buttery smooth, but functionally limiting. What do I mean by that? Well, pretty much every game I played, the gameplay itself has no lag at all, except for one tiny bug, but we'll get into that later. Everything pretty much played like you would expect from the original hardware. However, the RG351P is not touchscreen and does not have two screens, which makes some DS games a pain to play. For example, in Contra 4, your character will switch from the bottom to the top screen and vice versa depending on the map. If you play with both screens on the horizontal layout, not only are your screens really small, but it's awkward when your character switches to the top screen because he's actually moving into the screen on the right or the left instead of this fluid movement from bottom to top. Let me cut in here real quick. During the editing of this video, I realized that there is a way to set a vertical orientation for Drastic on the 351P. Simply press on the left stick, go to Change Options, then Video Options, and then go down to screen orientation, and there's an option to hit vertical. Now, this still means the screens will be really tiny. However, in games like Contra 4, where you're going to be switching from screen to screen and a vertical layout makes more sense, you may want to do this orientation. Just wanted to make sure I threw this in this video. You can also play with one screen showing and then press the L2 button to switch screens, but I personally find this very annoying. The same problem happens with Sonic Rush, by the way. What this means is that you should really limit yourself to games that don't require quick changes from top to bottom screen. Games that focus mainly on one screen and then have the other screen as like a map or a menu. Pokemon works very well for this because you can use the top screen for 90% of the gameplay and only switch when you need to select an attack in battle or use the backpack. The other major issue with functionality is not having the touchscreen. What you do instead is use the right analog stick to move around the stylus and then hit the A button or press the R3 button to tap. This stylus is super difficult to control, and as you can imagine, games that rely heavily on the touchscreen are going to be very painful to actually play. I should make a quick side note at this time. For Pokemon Heart Gold, when it came down to picking my starter Pokemon, the A button with a stylus wouldn't work like it had been working with all my other games. I finally realized that I had to press the right stick down to select the Pokeball in this one example. Never happened again, which is really weird. I honestly thought I'd be stuck in this part of the game and unable to progress. Now, a few other things I should mention about DS gameplay on the 351P. Earlier, I mentioned a bug for when it came down to the smoothness of the gameplay. Well, basically, when you switch from a double screen orientation to a single screen orientation, sometimes the frame rate would just drop and look choppy, just like this. It seems to happen randomly. I couldn't find any pattern at all. To fix this, simply switch back and forth between the single screen and double screen until it goes away. Not a big deal. Another thing I cannot do while playing DS games on the 351P is putting the console into sleep mode. This seems to shut off all the controls for me until I restart my 351P. So basically, don't put the game in the sleep mode. Another random issue I had was when playing Advance Wars Dual Strike. The A button would just not work for whatever reason until I'd go into the joysticks menu and back into the game. Then the A and B button were switched. Weird, I know, but just a random issue that happened with one game. Overall, DS gameplay works great on the 351P. As long as you're playing games that don't rely too much on using both screens and games that don't rely on using too much of the touchscreen functionality. Alrighty, I gave you my best overview of DS gameplay on the 351P. Now let's kick back and watch some more DS gameplay footage. And there you have it. DS gameplay on the Anbernic 351P. Is it good? Yep. I mean, depending on the game, it's pretty darn good. Here's the thing though, if you're looking for a device specifically to play DS games, the Amber 351P is not going to be a good device for you to play. But if you're looking for GB, GBA, NES, SNES, and PS1, and the ability to play DS games, then this is a great device for you. Now, I advise everybody to check out my 100-hour review video on the Anbernic 351P. I'll make sure to link to that in the description. I highly recommend you check that out because I go very in-depth on the console itself. So if you're thinking about purchasing it, highly recommend you check out that video. Anyway, thanks for watching. Peace.